Hi there. Okay, in this video we are going to talk about the firewall. How's the firewall created on the Server Matter servers, and let's walk you through that process. We're using Ansible as always to populate the server environment. We have in our main YML file an inclusion to the SM firewall, and let's take a look at that here. Now I should say that this video, the primary audience is going to be for server administrators working with us on this Server Matter project. Those who also use Ansible, I'm sure will find it interesting and will possibly glean something from it. So in the firewall YML file, we are copying over from our etc. directory, which you'll see we have here in a directory called globals that we maintain, a kind of a carbon copy of the directory structure that the target server is going to have, at least with those directories that we need files from. So in etc. we have an initd within the globals directory, and within initd you see this SM firewall that we talk about here. We are going to copy that over, and we are also going to make sure that we create a directory also called SM Firewall by the same name, although this one's in initd, which is always present with Ubuntu. We also copy over a ports configuration file into that newly created directory. Now once we've got our firewall in place, we're going to disable the UFW, or uncomplicated firewall, that ships with Ubuntu, and we are going to start our firewall, and it will officially take over from that point forward. Being in initd ensures that this firewall is going to start automatically when the server reboots, and once UFW is disabled, it does not enable itself automatically on reboot. It stays disabled. We don't want to have two firewalls overlapping each other, of course. Okay, let's take a look at some of these files. And by the way, this firewall is dependent on environment variables being in place because it uses these interfaces in that file. So let's close a few of these other ones. Okay, so here's our SM firewall. This is basically the script itself. I'm not going to cover that in detail because it's not a public file, but that's where that is handled. The ports themselves, we can come in and edit this. This is important. We can manually edit this file as needed when we have new programs that we've added to the server. We need to have ports opened up or ports closed. This is where we'll cover that, and instructions are within that file on how to deal with that. Okay, so I think that covers the firewall. So what we need to do is just run this file so you can see how it works. Okay, as always, we've got two tabs here. One is our local development environment, which I'll go ahead and clean up, and the other one is the target server. Now, right now, if I do a sudo status UFW, the other way around, sudo UFW status, it tells us that it's inactive. I think I'd like to start this off by removing the firewall, which this machine currently has. There we go. I probably should have stopped at first. And the directory that I know is created there. And actually I have a script to delete that. And I think that is it. Okay, so that firewall is toast. And at this point, we'll go ahead and enable the UFW. All right. And lastly, I want to open, well, actually I think, no, that's already built in, that's right. That's just a quick script I created. So it's going to open up a few of the necessary ports just in case they didn't get done, and run UFW. So now let's go ahead. We've got that enabled. We will run the playbook, which will disable it. And I've created our own little bash file, play it, which instead of manually typing playbook, Ansible, all the other kind of stuff, it's all built in there. All right, ran through the commands, no failures. That's a good sign. You can see little things like etc. init firewall and so on has been worked on. Now I'm just going to take a look at the status of UFW, and it is inactive, so we know it's done its job there. When we look at the firewall directory, has been created, ports do exist, and within here we should have an SM firewall, and we do. Now let's go ahead and look at the current IP tables, which would have been put in place by our firewall. You remember the IP tables I showed you earlier, it's just a short stack. These are the IP tables that our firewall puts in place. And the nice thing about these is nice human readable. We can see the programs that we use. We talk about individually. We can, Mongo database, OpenVPN, and so on. So it's all in there. And IP addresses specific to our environment. And at some point you'll see references to the ETH0, which is on our server. That was all brought to light by the networking scripts that we have running on the server. So anyway, and that's it. Now the server is 100% ready. That firewall is protecting us against all the bad guys and allowing the programs that need ports open and so on to do what they need to do, keep our server running smoothly. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.